3 months ago, I made a video about how New York City changed during the quarantine. Today, I'm gonna list 10 things about how New York City looks after the lockdown. And stay tuned till the end because I saved the best for last. The car traffic is definitely back. During the quarantine, you could see nothing around. It was so quiet and all the streets were so free. Right now, you can see again big traffic jams and traffic queues. To balance out the car traffic around the city, at least we have these streets that are closed, that are just reserved to pedestrians and cyclists. There are several different ones in each borough of New York City, and they're usually closed to car and trucks from morning to evening. If the traffic car is back, we must also admit that the bicycle traffic has also been maintained after the quarantine. In fact, during the quarantine, people started to use the bicycle more as a great alternative to the subway, which was not anymore a safe means of transportation to take. And still nowadays, you can see so many more people than last year's summer cycling around New York City. I must say, even my complete guide on how to bicycle in New York City has increased these views in the past 2-3 months, and I'm very happy about that because I put so much effort and especially so much heart into that video. Check it out here. The city is pretty empty of people. Already a couple of weeks in the quarantine, we've seen how the city was about 50% empty. Many people moved out, many people moved to their second houses, many younger people went back to their parents. Nowadays, more than 1 month after the finish of the lockdown, I would say that things are getting better. People are starting to come back to the city, but it still feels very, very empty. And that energy that New York City has usually is not back yet. And I'm afraid it's not gonna be back for a long, long time. People are moving out of the city in masses. Moving trucks like this one, you can see them every single day. New York is a very expensive city, and especially Manhattan, where I live. So I guess it's just something to be expected that people move out when their lease contract expire. I know people who decided to move away to more affordable cities, more affordable places, or many people in their 20s simply moved back to their parents. If during the quarantine I was very much impressed by the discipline of New Yorkers in wearing masks and practicing social distancing, now after the lockdown, it suddenly disappeared. As bars started to open in June, I started seeing groups of people gathering together without masks, without practicing any social distancing. Based on my observations, the most problematic situations are kids playing together in the parks and people partying outside. Now it's morning and all the people you can see in the background are wearing masks probably, but in the evening is the problematic moment when people really start to drink alcohol and they just lose the perception of what is proper to do and what is not. This is something that started again exactly yesterday, but before that, for months we haven't had any street cleaning. So with the garbage, people living on the streets, and the major heat that we have had in July and June, it's been a difficult situation for people with very sensitive nose. This next one is the thing that is bothering me the most out of everything, and it is that the homeless are increasing. Living situations like this one that you can see here are becoming more and more normal. I live in this village which is historically sort of a hub for homeless people, so maybe this phenomenon is more evident here, but I can assure you that only in these past 2-3 months the number of homeless people has increased so much. You find people living on the street literally at any corner right now. It is something that I'm usually already very sensitive about. Right now it's something that really makes me sad only walking around the neighborhood. The post-lockdown phase in New York City has been highly marked by the George Floyd protests. June is usually the month of Pride here in New York, a moment to celebrate freedom of personal expression, of personal preference, freedom of living the life that you want to live. June 2020 has been the month instead of police violence and protests against racism. In the first 3 weeks of June, we have had thousands of people protesting and marching on the streets of all boroughs. And even if now in July the protests have calmed down, there are still signs of the message of the protest everywhere in the city. In fact, not only very many small businesses have hanged signs in favor of protesters, but also private citizens outside of their apartments and bigger businesses too. And finally, the best thing about this lockdown has been that because it is forbidden to dine indoors, the city allowed restaurants to arrange outdoor seating areas on sidewalks and parking lots as well, which made the experience of the city in the summer season so much more enjoyable. Especially for me, coming from Europe, this really reminds me of the old continent. Even just walking around the streets and seeing all the people sitting down and socializing on the streets instead of indoors in air-conditioned restaurants just makes me so happy. Hey everyone, I am Mary Jane. I used to make travel vlogs, but right now, because of the pandemic, I'm living here in New York City and I'm making little adventure cycling vlogs here in New York City. If you're interested, check out these two that I'm gonna put here, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Bye!